Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today to talk about this important topic on retirement security for women amid COVID-19. I'd like to start by thanking the Alliance for Lifetime Income for this opportunity to share our research finding. I'm Catherine Collinson, and I head up Transamerica Institute and its Center for Retirement Studies. Today is an auspicious day to be talking about this very important topic. Today is Women's Gender Equality Day, and today, August 26th, 2020, marks the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. Despite all of the progress made over the last century, women, in that progress being women achieving levels of educational attainment and career opportunities that our grandmothers never dreamed of, we are still at risk of not achieving a financially secure retirement. And some of the contributing factors include the gender pay gap is still alive and well, and in part as a result of women being more likely to take time out of the workforce for parenting and caregiving. This time out of the workforce reduces our overall lifetime earnings, our ability to save, even things like employee benefits. The other issue is we know that our parents always taught us when we were looking for our first jobs, it's the hardest. It's always harder to find a job when you don't have a job. And this is also the case for women. If we've taken any time out of the workforce and try to jump back in, it can be really hard, especially given that the times are changing so quickly and skill sets are in demand are changing and the economic environment is changing. Another issue is, as women, statistically, we live longer, which implies we either need to work longer or that we'll be spending more time in retirement, hence an even greater need to save. Now that we're amid the pandemic, some of the challenges are even amplified further with women balancing their jobs, homeschooling, and possibly even caregiving for an aging parent. The challenges are formidable, and it seems like a mighty tall mountain to climb. But as I share our research findings, we see that there are action steps that many women can be taking that are within reach, regardless of their current situation. So today I'm going to give you a sneak preview of a new report that is coming out next week, Women and Retirement, the Risks and Realities Amid COVID-19. And this report is actually based on two sets of survey findings. Most recently, we did a survey in June 2020 to understand how women are financially coping amid the pandemic. And then we are overlaying, the second part of my presentation will give a much broader perspective on women's views in retirement in a lengthy survey that we conducted in late 2019, shortly before the pandemic. I'm going to start this research findings with some good news. Amid the pandemic, over 4 in 5 women say they have close relationships with their family and friends, consider themselves to be happy and enjoying life. This is all good news. But I also want to point out, our survey also finds that there are almost half of women say that they are financially struggling or dealing with other issues. I think it's important to balance these perspectives. We need an infusion of good news now and then, but we also need to be facing realities. Another thing that we found in the survey, again, we asked these questions in June, we asked about healthy activities that women are engaging in on a consistent basis. And the survey finds that women are doing a pretty good job, but there is more that we can be doing to safeguard our health. Especially now, it's a pandemic, and many women are being stretched to our limits. And so it's so important we safeguard our health, not only for our own well-being and enjoyment in life, but for our families, our employment situation, and even in areas that can even influence our financial situation. So as you can see on this chart, I'll point out a few things. 58% of women say they're eating healthily. Only 55% say that we're seeking medical attention when needed. I want to flag that one because that is a big opportunity. We've got to safeguard our health and engage with the healthcare system if there's an urgent medical situation versus deferring seeking care. Almost as many, 54%, are exercising regularly, and 53% getting plenty of rest. 53% maintaining a positive outlook. I'll point out, I think that's something that we all need to get through this pandemic and the economy. So as we go through this, I just encourage all women to think about what additional steps can you do to take care of your health so that you can engage in all of the things that are important to you. Almost 1 in 4 women say their retirement confidence has declined in light of the pandemic. And that might seem pretty good. However, I want to underscore that women's retirement confidence was not that great, is not that great overall. Only 17% of women say they're very confident that they will be able to retire with a comfortable lifestyle. And as a point of comparison, this relates to closer to 30% of men. So just to frame this situation, a few women are very confident that they'll be able to fully retire with a comfortable lifestyle. The pandemic and economy and economic downturn have wreaked havoc on employment in the employment market. As of June, when this survey was conducted, 52% of women in the workforce who are either working or recently laid off or furloughed were impacted in one way or another, as you can see from this chart. 24% reduced work hours, 16% laid off, 13% reduced salary, 13% furloughed, and 4% retired early. All of these impacts negatively impact our earning power and our ability to not only pay our current bills, but to save for retirement. When we look at women's financial priorities, and we have many competing financial priorities, there's a glimmer of good news here that almost half say saving for retirement is a current financial priority. But I want to also point out what could be considered a dark cloud hanging over women's financial situation. And that is almost 6 in 10 women, 59%, cite paying off some form of debt as a financial priority, including 38% who specifically cite paying off credit card debt. 70% of women in the workforce are currently saving for retirement, either through their current employer's plan, a former employer's plan, or outside of work. I'll also add that the majority of this 70% are saving through employer-sponsored plan, and somewhat fewer through outside IRAs outside of the workplace. A big concern during the pandemic, especially among the retirement community and retirement professionals, is leakage from retirement accounts in the form of loans and early withdrawals. And the CARES Act offers provisions that can make it easier or less punitive for people to take loans and withdrawals, recognizing amid the pandemic they may have other more pressing financial priorities. Nonetheless, any leakage, either loans or hardship withdrawals that we take now, can have a long-term effect on the growth of our savings between now and the time that we're getting ready to retire. Our survey finds that almost 1 in 5 women in the workforce, 18%, have either already taken a loan or early withdrawal from their retirement accounts, specifically as a result of the pandemic. And my last comment on this is, as an industry and all of our outreach efforts, the more we can do to educate the implications of taking loans and withdrawals, the better we can help people, so that it may be their best alternative, but at least they understand the consequences and have a plan to either take as little as possible, what they need, and a plan to pay themselves back. Fewer than 1 in 5, only 19% of women have a written retirement strategy. And as we look at retirement planning over the long run, it is impossible to reach a destination without a roadmap. And so this is something I like to highlight to encourage every woman to start by developing a written retirement strategy, a financial plan, some goal setting, to not only look at the short term, but also look at the long term. Another aspect of the pandemic that should be front and center for all of us, all women and men, is the reality is we're in the midst of the greatest public health crisis in the last 100 years, and we should be prepared for the unexpected. And in our survey, we asked about the legal documents that women have in place if trusted individuals, if they're unable to make decisions on their own behalf. And as you can see, more than half have no legal documents in place. And I'll point out a couple I think are particularly important. Only 17% have a power of attorney for healthcare or a medical proxy, and only 15% have a general power of attorney. These are documents that we may think are for people later in life, but the pandemic knows no boundaries. It's impacting people of all ages, and this is something that women need to do to be protecting themselves. And I also want to point out, with this survey finding and many other survey findings, the response rate is not that much higher among men. This is an everybody issue. Another big issue that has come to light, it was already, I believe, among many of us under the magnifying glass, but even more so now with the pandemic, are plans for long-term care. And we asked, what plans do you have if you need if your health declines and you need assistance with your daily activities? And what we found is almost half say they would rely on family and friends, 48%, and then about 1 in 5 cited things like assisted living community or nursing home. And I want to point out 2 other areas which I think are especially ripe for education and outreach. Almost 1 in 5, 18%, say they do not have any plans, and 18% say they haven't thought about. Long-term care is something that none of us like to think about, but all of us should consider. It is so much easier to make decisions and have plans set in place proactively than trying to scramble and respond in the middle of a crisis. Another thing that we find, and I'm going to point out, women are an underserved market. Only 45% of women in the workforce use a professional financial advisor to help manage their retirement savings or investments. And this retirement planning, saving, investing is complicated. Many women may not have the desire or the appetite to become investment experts, and a financial advisor can be extremely helpful. Now I'm going to shift gears and switch over to the findings from our broader retirement survey that we conducted in late 2019, again, before the pandemic. And for me, one of the single most intriguing questions that we asked in the survey is, what does the word retirement mean to you? And this is intriguing to me because in this day and age, people have the potential to live longer than any other time in history. We've moved far from our grandparents' generation that look at retirement as a fixed point in time when we're working full-time one day and never again the next. So it's really fascinating to hear the diversity of perspectives on how women are thinking about retirement. And I'm going to share with you 3 quotes because I want to cover 3 generations. I want to cover boomers, millennials, and Gen X. And I'm going to start with the Gen X woman respondent, age 50. And she says, retirement means being stress-free and able to do as I please. But given the current climate of things, that doesn't seem possible. A 22-year-old millennial is already concerned about retirement and said, retirement means fear to me. I'm scared of not being financially independent. And a 22-year-old potentially has 40 or 50 or more working years ahead of her. There is so much that we can do in terms of education and outreach, that saving consistently over time and setting forth plans can impact outcomes. And her quote just illustrates this opportunity in terms of how we can be helping women. A 68-year-old baby boomer woman in the workforce says, retirement means a slower pace of life. It also means the ability to choose what I want to do and when I want to do it. We also took this question a step further and asked a series of word associations about retirement. And some good news is, and we asked, as you can see on the screen, we asked about 12 different word associations, 6 what we consider positive, and 6 what we consider not positive. And overall, something that is really good is 85% of women in the workforce cited 1 or more of the positive responses, compared with only 40% who cited 1 or more of the negative responses. The top response being freedom at 55%. Retirement means freedom for more than half of women. It also means enjoyment, stress-free, and one of my favorites, the 1 in 5 or 21%, who see it as a time for personal growth. However, we cannot overlook the fact that almost 1 in 5 women, 19%, associate the word retirement with financial insecurity. Women also have really exciting retirement dreams. I don't think it's any surprise that more than 2 in 3 cite travel as a retirement dream. I know I'm one of them. Travel when it's safe to travel again, that dream is on hold. And spending more time, the 57% spending more time with family and friends. One thing that I love about women's retirement dreams is the number of women that are looking to do either volunteer work or some form of paid work in retirement. And it's really quite astonishing to me that 27%, or almost 1 in 3 women, dream, this is not plan, this is not expect, but dream of doing some form of paid work in retirement. And it also is very encouraging that just as many women dream of doing volunteer work in retirement and helping make the world a better place. We also see that more than half of women in the workforce, 54%, expect to retire after age 65 or do not plan to retire at all. On top of this finding, we also see that more than half of women, 56%, plan to continue working at least part-time in retirement. So the whole idea of retirement being this sort of fixed point in time where you're working full-time one day and never again the next is vanishing and vanishing rapidly. We also inquired, because that's what we do in a survey, reasons for doing so. What are your reasons for working past 65 or in retirement? And as you can see on the chart, 4 and 5, 81% cite one or more financial reasons, including wanting or needing the income or benefits. I don't think this is a surprise that women are looking to work in retirement for these reasons. But I also think it's really encouraging that almost as many women, 76%, cited one or more what we call healthy aging related reasons. And those range from being active, wanting to keep our brain alert, having a sense of purpose, and enjoying what we do. However, dreams and expectations cannot become a reality if we are not proactive and take steps to increase the likelihood of success. And we inquired about that as well. And we see that women can be doing more on this front. Just over half, 56%, say they're staying healthy so they can continue working. I would love to see that number closer to 100%. Only 46% indicate they're performing well at their current job, especially in this day and age and this economy, to be working and have employment. If there was ever a time in our working lives to be a superstar, now is that time. I also want to point out only 41% say they're keeping their job skills up to date, which is absolutely imperative for women of all ages, not just those looking to work later in life. That's imperative for all of us to stay competitive in today's marketplace. I also think this is a question that it's really important to point out that the response rates among men were not much different. So again, women face challenges, and this is not a woman versus man thing. We're talking about women today, but this is a very important area of focus for both women and men. I mentioned earlier the issue that women are more likely to take time out of the workforce for parenting and caregiving. Especially with the aging of the population, it is more and more likely that people in the workforce will be called upon at some point to care for an aging parent or loved one. And what we found in our survey is 38% of women in the workforce are either currently or have served as a caregiver during their working years. And this is particularly noteworthy because we followed up with the question that many have made adjustments to their employment situation in order to be caregivers. And this is so noteworthy because those adjustments equate to our earning power, our ability to cover our own expenses, and our ability to save. The more we can do to help empower caregivers, both women and men, so that they can more effectively balance their employment and their income with their family responsibilities or caring for a loved one, the better off we all can be. This survey finding, expected primary source of income in retirement, I think is particularly relevant for the Alliance for Lifetime Income because this is what women in the workforce expect to live off when they retire. And as you can see, the expected primary source, there's a diversity of responses. 35% say they expect to rely on savings from their 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. This illustrates and underscores the importance of employer-sponsored retirement plans and the need for universal access to employer-sponsored retirement plans. It's very important to point out almost 3 in 10 women in the workforce are expecting their primary source of income in retirement to come from Social Security, which is for many their only guaranteed source of retirement income. It's also noteworthy that 16% expect to rely on income from work when they've retired. I also want to point out only 5% expect their primary source to come from a company-sponsored or a company-funded traditional pension plan. An area I think is of particular concern that I want to point out, we asked women how much they think they need to have saved in order to retire comfortably. And the median response rate is only $300,000. And at face value, for many, $300,000 might sound like a lot of money, but if we think that that nest egg has to last over a retirement that could extend longer than 20, 25, 30 or more years, $300,000 just doesn't go very far. We also asked how they arrived at that amount, and more than half say they guessed. So clearly, this is an opportunity for education and outreach. We also inquired about overall or total household retirement savings or total household savings in all retirement accounts. And we see across the board, looking at all of the women in the workforce, women workers, compared with women by generation, millennials, Gen X, boomers, retirement savings is low. The estimated median saved for retirement in total household retirement accounts is $28,000 for women. As a point of comparison, for men, it's closer to $70,000. I want to specifically call out baby boomer women. Baby boomer women in the workforce, estimated median savings is $84,000, which will not go far in a retirement that could last 20 or 30 or more years. And as a point of comparison, if this could help illustrate how a gender pay gap can lead to an even wider retirement savings gap, while the estimated median among women is $84,000, it's more than $200,000 among men. Emergency savings is a really big topic these days. A rainy day fund, our case of 2020, we have a pandemic and a major economic downturn. And when we asked this question in late 2019, we found that women have saved relatively little if they were to encounter a major financial shock, such as a major home repairs or expenses or unemployment. $5,000 is the estimated median. As a point of comparison, men really aren't that much better off. The estimated median among men was $7,000. One thing I think is particularly important to point out is we've got to make this a conversation. We need to elevate the retirement risks that women are facing to our national dialogue. As a woman myself, I know that when we make something a topic of conversation and focus on it, we can solve the greatest of problems. We can climb the highest of mountains. Our survey finds only 17% of women frequently discuss saving, investing, and planning for retirement with family and close friends. So let's make this part of the conversation. I'm going to wrap up my formal prepared remarks before we move over to the Q&A with a recap of 7 ways that women can improve their retirement outlook, and with the help from the Alliance for Lifetime Income, industry and other nonprofits dedicated to helping women, to the retirement industry, retirement plan providers, employers, financial advisors, and family and friends. So the 11 ways for women are: assess our current financial situation and create a budget. Number 2, take advantage of opportunities to save for retirement, especially in the workplace, through workplace retirement savings plans, such as a 401k, 403b, or similar plan. Engage in financial planning and develop a retirement strategy. and a plan that focuses both on short-term needs, medium-term financial goals, and long-term retirement savings needs. And put it in writing so you can track progress along the way. Saving and planning for a secure retirement is just as much a journey as it is a destination. Our lives change over time, and we've got to adjust our plans accordingly. Number 4, which I mentioned before, we've got to avoid taking loans and hardship withdrawals from retirement accounts. 5, if faced with parenting or caregiving responsibility, carefully consider any changes to your work and make mindful decisions, and also open up the topic with other family members. Too often, one family member, an adult daughter, takes on, especially with caregiving, a disproportionate amount of the responsibilities. The more we can make caregiving and parenting a shared responsibility, the less of a burden it will be on the woman who may otherwise be giving up her employment. Another tip is, if trying to balance both, consider working part-time before giving up employment altogether. And number 6, maintain your ability to continue working as long as you want or need. By doing that, be a superstar in your job, take care of your health, and keep your job skills up to date. I'll now go into the last 5 ways women can improve their financial situation. Get involved in your family's finances, ranging from daily budgeting to long-term planning. A survey question that we've asked over the years that frankly I find disturbing is, men in the workforce, married men, are much more likely to say they are very familiar with their spouse's retirement savings than the other way around. In other words, women are less likely to say they're familiar with their spouse's savings compared with men. Get educated about retirement investing and strategies for making your nest egg last in retirement, including drawdown strategies. And many people, both women and men, need some extra help, or may even prefer to rely on outside experts. But that doesn't get us off the hook from getting educated. We need to learn the basics. We need to learn as much as we can so that we can ask good questions and make informed decisions. Number 9, have a backup plan in the event that retirement comes unexpectedly, or if there's a change in your financial situation, such as a separation, a divorce, or a loss of a partner. Part of every plan is having contingency plans so that when the unthinkable happens, that you have a sense, a fallback plan, or alternative pathways. In the world of the pandemic, we call them pivot plans, to help us get us through these times and back on track. Number 10, we've got to do everything we can to take good care of ourselves and safeguard our health, and get us through this pandemic and thrive after the pandemic, which will end at some point. We just don't know when. And then the last one I'll leave you with, which I know we're all aware of, but we just can't be hypervigilant enough, because the better we understand today's scams, it seems like there's 100 more to take their place tomorrow. So we all have to be super scam savvy. And with that concludes my prepared remarks. I want to leave you with where you can see the survey when it comes out next week. Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies is a nonprofit private foundation. We receive our charitable funding from Transamerica Corporation. Our website is transamericacenter.org, and our Twitter handle is @TCRstudies. On our website, you can see the snapshot of our homepage there. You can find all of our research and press releases and outreach materials. So we hope that you'll check it out. And if you're really interested, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there's a place where you can join our mailing list so that we can keep in touch and keep you informed of all our new survey releases. So with this, this officially concludes my prepared remarks. And Anna, I think I'm ready for the Q&A.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to read off some of the questions. We just received one from Jean Dunn. What role do you think financial advisors play in helping women investors, especially since only around 14% of advisors are women?
Financial advisors can play a tremendous role in helping women. And we can look at this as glass half empty or half full. I see this as a tremendous opportunity for all financial advisors and for more women to become financial advisors. And part of helping a woman client is really understanding her situation, her needs, her goals, objectives, her challenges, to collaborate and work together to build realistic financial plans and make savvy investment decisions. For me, I see this as a tremendous opportunity and an underserved opportunity in the marketplace, both for women investors as well as for women who could be financial advisors.
Excellent, thank you. Right now, we don't have any other questions pending, but if anyone would like to ask a question, we're open for the next 5 minutes, and you can type it in your Q&A button down in your Zoom app. And if we don't get time to do the questions, feel free to email me at anna@alincome.org, or our info account, which is where you received the invitation from. And we'll be glad to share this over back with Catherine and the Transamerica Center. We really appreciate your time, Catherine. And this is really great research. So we're happy to be able to share it with our members and our partners.
Well, thank you, Anna, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be able to speak to this important topic, especially on this auspicious day, the 100-year anniversary of the women's right to vote.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming through, so we can just wait a minute to see if maybe people are typing. And then if not, we'll close the chat. And one more thing, this will also be available on demand. So we will have it accessible for your colleagues who may have missed it at this time, and if you want to replay it as well. Catherine, we have another question. What were some generational differences in the study?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Thank you for asking. And we have, for both women and men, and of course this is about women in retirement, some of the generational differences that we see relate to the changing retirement landscape. And when we think about our working careers, which can last 30 or 40 or more years, the retirement landscape doesn't remain static. So as we look to baby boomers relative to Gen X or millennials, baby boomers are the generation that has really rewritten the rules, and we see that throughout all stages of life, and we see that in the retirement expectations. They're the generation paving the way for a gradual transition for retirement versus this work retirement all or nothing proposition. And we see those findings among both women and men. Generation X, and I want to do a special focus on Gen X and Gen X women in particular. Once upon a time, Gen X was dubbed that as the invisible generation. And we've got to shed that. We've got to put more light on Generation X. They're, in terms of population-wise, a smaller population than boomers or millennials, but still represent tens of millions of Americans. And what we've seen in our survey work is both women and men, but particularly women, their retirement confidence levels are lower, they're a bit further behind on their savings and their planning, and could really use a vote of confidence. They also represent, going back to the retirement landscape, an interesting shift, because as Gen X were coming into the workforce, 401ks were starting to come into their own in the 80s, but they really, to be widespread available, that didn't really that took the 90s and into the early 2000s. So even many Gen X haven't had that opportunity to save, and were potentially less likely to have a defined benefit plan compared with baby boomers. Now, millennials are, the third generation that we look at also have some really fascinating findings. And one thing to me that's really exciting, millennials in the workforce got the message about the importance for saving for retirement. They started saving at an age far younger than their older counterparts. Typically, the median age of those saving, and it's 7 and 10 that are saving, or even more, they start saving at like 23 or 24, meaning that they get their first job out of college, or one of their first jobs out of college, they're offered a 401k plan or a similar plan, and they start saving. That's really encouraging. However, there are a couple of things I want to point out. It's great they're starting to save, but they also have an opportunity to engage in planning. And when we did the COVID survey in June, when we looked at millennials, and this is both women and men, but women as well, millennials are more likely than the older generations to say they have either or plan to dip into the retirement savings, take a loan or early withdrawal, compared with the older generations. And that's really concerning. They may need the money, and they be looking at their nest eggs, which they've been building, but it's so important that they know the implications of that decision and weigh out all of the opportunities before making a final decision to either draw from their savings or look at other sources. May be the best alternative, but it is just so critical that they have the knowledge and the education to make an informed decision. And the last thing I want to call out about millennials that I think is really exciting about the survey findings is millennials are more likely to say they frequently discuss saving and investing for retirement compared with baby boomers. Of all three generations, we see the highest response rate among millennials on that question. So anyway, that's just a flavor of the generational differences. And as you can see on the screen on our homepage, we did do, and it's on our website right now, a report on the retirement outlook across generations. This is not gender specific, it's just millennials, Gen X, and boomers. But I invite you to take a look at it.
Perfect, thank you. All right, well, I don't see any other questions pop up. Just a comment, thanking you for the webinar and looking forward to seeing the study next week. So we'll be sure to share that once it's out.
Well, thank you, Anna, and thank you everybody who has joined this presentation today. I hope that you have some actionable takeaways and look forward to working with everyone on education outreach and helping women achieve a secure retirement.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting.